weapons, and he's going to be debriefed. Now, they never told anybody anything else. Nobody ever talked to the rest of them.
Wow.
Except the radar guy and the electronics guy. A couple of guys came from the Pentagon, full colonel, and they had, after the incident happened, they had a roll of film with all the radar images on it, and they discussed it with the radar officers. So they said, well, did they ever tell you not to talk about it? And he said, they didn't have to tell us not to talk about it. We knew not to talk about it. There's nuclear weapons. You don't talk about that stuff.
Jan, do you have a lung condition?
I have. I had cancer of the throat. So.
Oh, I when I first listened to you, I thought that maybe you needed there was something you could take to help you, because I could hear you having trouble with it. So I was kind of trying to figure that one out with you.
Yeah. But so it's not very pleasant talking for a long time. In any case, these we're there now. This is
68.
68. So we're there in 94. And
wow.
I remember we did this interview outside, and we're in this guy owns a lot of land, and we're there, and I'm just looking around, and I'm saying to myself, this story can't be true. It's too fantastic.
Okay.
And I'm just enjoying the woods too. It's just it's really and. Up till now, it's just been him, and I have looked at the Project Blue Book case file, so I know a little bit about it.
Good.
But I still haven't. It still hasn't sunk into me how fantastic this case is, and so we asked him. Now, this is years ago, and his crew has been broken up, and he went to Vietnam and flew aircraft in the Vietnam War, and he hasn't. He occasionally might have seen one or two of the guys, but he hadn't seen for a long time, and he was having trouble remembering the names. So, how are we ever going to follow up with other people? And then he goes into his military records, and he's got all his, things about his awards and a lot of other stuff, and he pulls out this photograph.
Wow. And
when I saw it, I wanted to start crying.
Wow. Okay. Do it.
Because here is the B-52 that they were in, and here's all the guys out in front of the B-52, and you can read all their names.
Oh.
And once he sees that, he knows everybody's full name. And so we have everybody's full name, and we were able to trace down everybody on that aircraft that was alive. One of the guys had died. And they all told their story from their vantage point. So, like, the radar guys couldn't see out the aircraft. They could only see, what was on the radar screen. And the guy in the back, he was there's a gun in the back. There's a gunner in the back, so he saw just when the UFO was behind them.
Okay.
But we were able to go and get everybody's witness statement on tape. So you might have remembered Peter Jennings. He was a newscaster at ABC News.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we have all this story. Plus, we were able to talk to some of the other people on the ground, like the military police that were watching some of this. They had their own sightings. And Peter Jennings was doing supposedly extraterrestrial life. That's what he was doing. And he was going to have a little section on UFOs, but it just turned the other way around. It turned out there was going to be a UFO report, an hour report on UFOs and a little bit about extraterrestrial life. So ABC News went back and interviewed all these guys.
Okay.
They didn't trust a bunch of amateurs.
Okay.
So they went back and interviewed all these people, and he had about a 4-minute segment, which is huge for nightly news.
Yeah.
He not only did it once, he did it twice. This 4-minute segment about the Minot case on his news program. Then he had the UFO special that he had, and he re-interviewed it. So that's, to me, that's the most fantastic case. Now, the radar photographs just fell into our lap by accident.
Okay.
The intelligence officer at Minot had kept 12 he thought were the best radar photographs, and he had given it to somebody in Minnesota MUFON, and Tom had gone to a Minnesota MUFON meeting, and he started talking about this case, and the guy says, "I think I have those photographs."
No way. No way.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Okay, so Tom took over this case, and he investigated with people in Europe, radar expert in Europe, who's a physicist.
Right.
An air traffic controller in England who also knows radars backwards and forwards. And then we went to the Air and Space Museum in New Mexico, and one of the guys on the staff there was a lieutenant colonel from the Army, who worked at White Sands, and we're there talking to him, and Tom shows him the photographs.
Wow.
So this guy is a radar expert also, so he's looking at him, he's telling us what's going on in the photographs, and this is what Tom's already heard from other people, and he's sitting there without knowing anything about the case. He's just sitting there telling us what's happening. It's so clear on the radar, and so to me, that's the most fantastic case. It's the most one of the most thoroughly investigated cases. Tom talked to he talked to a couple of generals that were involved in it. They didn't give out much information though.
So take a breath for a second, and I'm gonna talk. Did you get a cough drop or something?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, good. Okay, so here's what I hear you telling me in this story, is that it's coming to the end of the project of the research, and as it's coming to the end of the project, you're out collecting these stories, and it's a long road trip, and you end up with this person who was in Kentucky, and he was the person who was on this flight that documents the actual interaction of his plane and a UFO, and he has the photographs, he has the independent histories, he has the names, and then this becomes a story with Peter Jennings on ABC, and then different experts, scientists, specialists, people that only do this specific type of work, verify all of the documents, and the documents that you need in order to make this a full story, complete with documentation, scientific evidence, sort of lands on you, and you put together and document a story basically from point A to the conclusion, and it is documented, it's publicized, and it is verified. What a great story. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, I didn't do it all, but the other fellow that was with me, Tom Tulane, I mean, he did it. He did the most of it. I was in on the beginning when we interviewed that pilot. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it was after a long trip, and we'd interviewed a bunch of people, and let me tell you, I was starting to get a little skeptical about the whole thing anyways. Like I said, I'm sitting there in this woods, and we're filming in the woods.
Uh-huh.
It's beautiful, and it's kind of distracting, but this guy's story is interesting. But I'm not really buying it until he pulls out that picture with the whole crew there, because I'm thinking to myself, how are we ever going to verify all of this?
What proof do you have, huh?
Yeah. And he pulls out that picture, and then everybody's name is right there, and he remembers everybody's name. And it took a little while to run everybody down. And I remember Tom asked the radar officer. He asked the radar officer, he said, why are you talking about this to me now?
Mm-hmm.
You know you weren't supposed to talk about this, right? And he says, you know what? We won the Cold War. He said, I can talk about it now.
Wow. So
that's what he said. He said he felt like he could talk about it because, you know, all the alerts they had been on and all the staying up in the air sometimes for days,
right,
flying around. He felt like he had, he had this story, and he was able to tell it now.
Wow, what an amazing experience. And so I love the story. I love the human story, where the human story comes in.
It's on the internet. It's Minot. You can look it up. Minot Air Force Base, October 28, 1968. I think that's the .com or something like that.
Okay.
You could find it easily on Google.
It changed your life. That story changed your life.
Well, no, it didn't change my life, but it's one of the most important cases that I ever worked on. And I didn't do most of the work. Tom did most of the work.
Okay. But, thanks for being modest, but let's hear the whole story. We love it. We want the story.
Yeah.
You know.
So and Tom did work with Bigelow on this, so we talked about Bigelow. Bigelow hired some B-52 crew people to verify the story, and they were going to try to take it to Congress because there were these congressmen had heard the story.
Okay.
And they were interested in holding hearings on it. So we got within an inch of going to Congress with the story, and it kind of fell through. And
okay.
Bigelow was pushing that.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
so any other so I know it's getting hard for you to talk now. So any other things that you can, that's a big story. That's it's a great story. It's got a great timeline. It's a great story. You're real modest. It doesn't have, I had only a part in it and everything else. But anything else to that story that you think is interesting or